Thank you very much. It's my honor to make the next presentation, but I do want to say just a word about Coro. The intersection of Coro and my both personal and professional life has been noteworthy. First of all, my daughter is a Coro graduate from the San Francisco program, and yeah, give her a hand. It was the Coro experience that she had. When I interviewed Vince Scully on the Larry Mantle show, she said, "Dad, ask him the following Coro kind of question." I said, "Well, what would that be?" She says, "Ask him, if you were a pitch, what kind of pitch would you be?" So my daughter is a graduate. My daughter-in-law is on your board and a Coro graduate, Katie Young, who is here. And my chief of staff for several decades, and now my partner at UCLA, Elisa Belenkoff-Katz, who is here. So I've been surrounded by Coro, and I want to thank all of you for supporting this really wonderful organization, which gives them a chance to get exposed to the real world and allows the real world to get exposed to young, smart, ambitious people who are going someplace, and it's a great marriage. When Miguel Santana called and asked me to make this presentation, I was a little surprised because Miguel and I didn't get off to a great start when he was working for Gloria Molina. It was more about me and Gloria than about me and Miguel. Then he went to work for the chief executive officer, and we didn't hit it off there either. And then he came to see me one day and he said, "Antonio Villaraigosa has offered me the job of CAO. What do you think I should do?" And I said, "Take it. Get the hell out of here." That wasn't really my motivation. But I thought he had the ability to be the chief administrative officer of the city. And the reason for it is that he was tested. He was tested in one of the most critical moments in the history of the county. He was a deputy to one of my colleagues when the county almost went bankrupt in the beginning of 1995. The county was spending about $1 billion more than it was taking in at a time when its budget was about $10 billion. So it had a 10% structural problem. And anybody who worked in a position of responsibility at that time in county government had that experience seared in their psyche. And all of us made a commitment we would never allow ourselves to get into that position again, because the stakes are just too damn high. When you go broke, when you go bankrupt, when you have to make slash and burn types of cuts, people suffer. And when Miguel went to work for the city, he went to work at the very moment when one of the most colossal mistakes ever made by a public agency, a 25% pay increase for its employees, just as the economy was beginning to collapse, put the city in danger of bankruptcy. And the mayor couldn't have picked a better person to come in and try to help turn the city around. And I think Miguel knows now, if he didn't know then, that it's the elected officials who bear the responsibility for what goes right and what goes wrong. But it's the chief executive or chief administrative officer, the chief staff person to those electeds, who has to tell them the truth, the unvarnished truth. And if they want to walk off a cliff, that's their business. If they want to heed the advice, that's also their business. And I'm happy to say that in my observations of Miguel over all these years, especially at the city, that his advice has been taken more often than not. And it's one of the principal reasons I think the city has turned its fortunes around. So he's not young enough to be my son. Actually, he is. But not in bureaucracy years, shall we say. But I feel an investment in him, and I've been extraordinarily proud to watch his growth and his rise to being one of the most influential and important people in the public policy world of Southern California and maybe beyond. He's still young, he's got a great future ahead of him, and it's my honor, Miguel, to call you a friend and to invite you up here to accept the Crystal Eagle Award.
Wow, thank you. You know, I may be known as a proud Molinista, but few people know that I'm also a proud Yaroslavskyista. You know, someone once said to me, if Gloria and Zev had a son, you would be that guy. I am very proud to have such incredible parents. Zev, thank you so much for that introduction. It is true, I did ask Zev when Antonio called me if I should take this job, and he was shocked that I asked him. And his heartfelt recommendation I took, and later realized why he did it. Thank you for your continued leadership at UCLA. The city still needs you. So we all have guilty pleasures. Mine are actually disaster movies and TV shows, especially those that take place in a dystopian Los Angeles. As my girlfriend and partner will tell you, when zombies are involved, I'm in heaven. War of the Worlds, Earthquake, Blade Runner, Escape from LA, Battle LA, San Andreas, and of course, Fear the Walking Dead. I love all of them. And the truth is, the storylines are pretty much all the same. Our beautiful city, notice that they never focus on the abandoned couches and the sidewalks, is shaken to its very core by a force beyond our control. And just when we're about to get blown off the face of the earth or fall into the Pacific Ocean, the seemingly shallow and self-centered protagonist discover that they're actually stronger than they realized. They save us all from Armageddon, and somewhere in the chaos they discover true love. In the end, the stories are really about survival, adaptation, and renewal. And who does that better than us? As Angelenos, survival, adaptation, and renewal are part of our DNA. The truth is, I'm no different. My own life story is quintessential LA, just not in the typical way Hollywood focuses on. My parents came from Mexico. They met in East Los Angeles and married at St. Viviana's. And by the way, if you haven't been to Redbird, you should go. Their 8 children grew up fearing that one day their parents would be deported. They were able to step out of the shadows following the last major immigration reform. Like millions of immigrant Angelenos around the world, through hard work, they didn't just survive and adapt, they ensured a new and better life for themselves and their children. Today, those 8 children are an elected official. 1 leads the effort to renew Pershing Square. 2 are social workers, 1 has a PhD. 2 are owners of small businesses, and of course, 1 is the CAO of the city of Los Angeles. Not bad. Elizabeth's parents, Senora y Senora Zamora, who share a similar story, and my parents are here tonight. Please join me in acknowledging them for representing the best of being an Angeleno. You should all know this is actually the first time they're meeting. So Elizabeth and I over here are a little nervous. I cut my teeth in politics and policy during a real-life disaster movie, also known as LA in the 1990s. Riots, the OJ trial, earthquakes, racial tension, Proposition 187, 2 economic recessions, the near collapse of our public healthcare system, loss of aerospace jobs, floods, fires, record gang violence, and high school dropout rates. We even lost 2 football teams. I kept on waiting for the locusts to show up. The rest of the country had written us off. Many predicted that our best days were behind us. You know, as Angelenos, we rarely take a step back and reflect on how far we have come. We take our evolution for granted because evolving is such a core part of who we are. As the national political rhetoric scapegoats immigrants, as Angelenos, we actually respect their contributions to our economy, to our culture, and to our community. We rely on them to make LA the nation's small business capital and cultural capital. As other cities struggle with community policing, we actually have a police force that reflects our demographics. And our economy is now among the most diverse in the country. And while some cities have yet to recover from the Great Recession, we are asking ourselves, is too much development actually a bad thing? We don't realize that most cities would love to have that problem. And yes, we even got football back. The truth is, most people in the world have visiting Los Angeles on their bucket list, and not just because of the Kardashians, because they see themselves in a city that welcomes those who are seeking to realize their dreams. While survival, adaptation, and renewal are part of who we are, not all of us end up better off than where we started. 47,000 Angelenos will sleep along the riverbeds, under bridges, freeways, and cars, tents, shelters, and on our sidewalks. 47,000. Just think about that. If they were to be their own city, they would be larger than more than half of the cities in LA County. For each and every one of them, life is all about survival. Just one more day. They are forced to adapt to their hostile and unforgiving environment. And to the point where the idea of renewal is almost impossible. Why don't we ask ourselves enough, when did this become acceptable? How many more are we willing to accept? 50,000, 75,000, 100,000, 200,000? For decades, to the extent that we even acknowledge the problem, we look to who to blame. It's the individual's fault for falling into addiction or failing to treat their mental health problem. It's their family's fault for not taking care of their own. It's the city's fault for decades of failed planning and lack of affordable housing, or the county's fault for not coordinating the fragile system that it supports? Or is it the state and federal government's fault for not providing enough funding? Well, I think we need to say enough with the excuses. The truth is, we are all responsible in being advocates, supporting new funding streams, in welcoming permanent supportive housing in our neighborhoods, and most of all, for not giving up hope. It is our responsibility. Coro is about leadership and challenging our institutions to coalesce around the toughest issues of the day. I recently had the opportunity to meet with the Coro Fellows, and we had an in-depth dialogue on homelessness, both on the physical reality of it, but also on the political challenges. What an impressive group. Their enthusiasm, passion, and commitment to doing good is refreshing. But the truth is that we all should have that level of enthusiasm. This is our time to take on this issue, like we've taken on so many others in the past, and show ourselves and the rest of the country that it can and will be done. So I want to thank and congratulate all of you for being part of this incredible evening. It is a huge honor to receive an award with the two other honorees who have committed their careers to addressing such an important problem. Thank you very much.